Welcome to Remnant Online followers. Please kindly subscribe. Thank you.
If all you hear is CNN and BBC, you will die of fear. But in addition to CNN and BBC, you need to hear breaking news from heaven. Because it's the breaking news from heaven that will keep you at peace, even in the midst of trouble. And so when you find the people who don't have access to spiritual knowledge, they will become victims, because most of the decisions they will take will be born out of anxiety. And many times when you take decisions out of anxiety, you'll be wrong, because the necessary intelligence required to fortify that decision will not be there. Jesus said that there will be betrayers. And so when your friend betray you, don't be offended. Build discernment to get trusted people. It will happen, and it will keep happening. You will kill yourself being offended. Can you imagine this sister that I've been with for 10 years? Well, you were with her for 10 years, but you didn't add discernment. That's why we create structures now. Even in church, there are structures. Don't come and wake up and say, that person on the media knows what he's doing. You will be shocked. The next time he will kneel down crying, he has sold your black magic camera because there's no food in the house. And you have a crusade that night. The agenda of God will be destroyed because you were naive and gullible. There should be accountability. There should be structure around everything you do. Don't wake up and say, this man is a prophet, living with the offering. One day he'll be walking and his socks will shift. And then the only dollars that was given as offering will fall. You will now notice how careless you have been with God's resources. Thank God we trust ourselves, but we will add structure to what we are doing. Even me, that is the set man, I'm not the one who makes withdrawals from the ministry funds. It's somebody else that makes withdrawals. I authorize, somebody else makes withdrawals. So one day I will not get tired and say, this thing is not working. And the next time you see me talking, I'll be talking from London and say, God has instructed me to relocate to London. Relocate to London with your seed. We are in the last days. Fathers will betray children. Children will betray fathers. Spouses will betray themselves. And so if you want to work effectively, build structure into every relationship, including family relationship. Consciously know how to relate with your wife so as to manage her emotion, because there will be many whispering spirits that can creep into systems that are not structured and create doubt in the hearts of men. And those doubts will lead to betrayal. You are a pastor, you say, no, here we are on fire, we are holy men. And 5 sisters come to your office, your secretary is a sister, she's working with you around 1 a.m. And then your wife traveled. Somebody who is now angry with you because you promised him something you didn't give him will now call you and say, well, I don't know how they work here, but I saw Sister A coming out of your husband's office around 1 a.m. 1 a.m.? She will now call somebody else. Where is this sister? They'll say it's with God's servant. You won't know where your divorce will originate from. But it originated from lack of wisdom and lack of structure. And so when Jesus is telling us these things, is to help us think deeply. You went and threw your child in a school and said this is a Christian school. And there's no strategy around monitoring how they are treated. Somebody came to pick his child from school. He knows this boy is a tyrant at home. You know this kind of children that they are pulling things every second. As he's holding one, you collect it, he's carrying another one. But every time he goes to carry this boy from school, the boy is sleeping. What are they telling this boy that makes him so calm? Is this not the same boy that wakes up with action at home till night? How come when he goes to school, he's so calm? Only to discover later that they add some sedatives to their food. So because the nannies can't handle them, they just add some things. So when they eat, they sleep. And so they are compromising your child's mental faculty from infancy. And you are working. You say, Kai, thank God for this school. If you don't have discernment, if you don't have structure, you will be a victim of betrayers. And the idea of the betrayer is to wreck what God has committed to your hands. When structures are put in place, it negates betrayal. That's why when Jesus was ascending, he didn't give us men, he gave us offices. To some, he gave apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors, and teachers, so that when Paul go, another apostle will rise. Because if he gave us Paul and Peter, Christianity would have ended. But because he gave offices, if one steps out, another steps in. Even God needed structure. He said, many false prophets shall arise and shall deceive many. And he said, because iniquity shall abound, he said, the love of many shall wax cold. And so in the last days, people will become godless. And the reason is simple. Iniquity shall what? Abound. That's why everywhere you turn now, you see a naked person. They are trying to access your soul structure. They are trying to pierce into your soul and to darken your soul. So when iniquity dominates you, whether you like it or not, you will become an agent of the devil even before you know. There are many Christians today that are either masturbating, or they are into pornography, or they are into drunkenness. They didn't know how their soul was remodified like that. They are not conscious of the last day. They didn't know that music is not about entertainment. Music is actually a gateway to the soul. And so what they do is to look for those who have access to the realm of sound and compromise them so that they can create vibrations that can alter the soul structure in a negative direction. And so you hear music, suddenly you become a drunk. You hear music, you become gay. You didn't know that the music was a product of sequences of vibrations formed with intelligence to alter your soul structure. Everything is created to make you become a slave of iniquity. And so a point comes, the things you want to do, you can't do, and you can no longer serve God. Jesus said there will be famine. And that means food will be attacked. And because food will be attacked, you need to become very intelligent around investments. That's why I spoke about investment. You need to know what to do. In fact, we need to begin to trust God as we fast and pray. That people should no longer just pray for 10 hours. While they are praying for 10 hours, they need innovative minds. We live in Africa where food is surplus. The whole world is looking into Africa because Africa now is like raw material and we can't process nothing. When the famine comes, where are the technocrats? When famine was to come in Egypt, Joseph rose up and began to give them strategy of processing and preservation. And so this is a time where somebody needs to know what to do to Garri, that you can store Garri for 7 years. And you know what to do to Garri to increase its content. So when you take 5 spoons of Garri, it can satisfy you. Because food will become a weapon. The locusts will come and eat the food. And the point will come when they will tell you, before you eat, you will take a mark. You may be able to stand and say, I will die of hunger. But when you have a son like I do, and you don't know what to do, you won't be able to see that boy die. And so in order for you not to come into a tight place where you are forced to make a decision that you won't naturally consent to, you need to develop strategies. And so people must become master investors, and we must also develop intelligence around processing. This is not the time to waste. You come to certain families, bread is open there, beans is open there, water is running. That's an anti-spirit. It's against the age. This is not a time to waste. This is a time to preserve, and also to go beyond preserving to processing. People must begin to think on how to convert things and make them more effective. That's the age that we are in. But if you don't know this, you know, many nations of the world are coming to Africa. They are buying seedlings from us. They are developing technology on how to hybridize it and give it more value so that it can last with them. And so they can use it, because the time will come when, if the attack comes, you will not have food to eat. And instead of the Africans to think intelligently on how to interact with food, all we are interested in is immediate gratification. Somebody will load 20 trucks of yam from Zakibian straight to Port Harcourt and sell all. And he has been farming yam for 20 years. He knows nothing about yam. All he does is to farm it and sell it, and collects more money and put it in the pocket, and God has blessed him. Because we don't know, we are in the last days. Our approach to life is wrong. And so when Jesus was teaching, he was equipping us against the times that we are in. And so we are going to be doing teachings to fortify the believer to be able to survive these things. 5 weapons for impactful living in the last days. Number 1 is the force of prayer. I always begin with prayer because prayer is the foundation of spirit life. Eternal life, scriptures, fellowship will all be useless if you don't pray. Because it's in prayer that you actually engage the spirit that furnish these things into your spirit. If you are not engaging God vitally, everything God puts in you will become obsolete. You will not even know how to operate it. Every machine requires a manual to educate you on how to operate it. This is why many are sick, many are helpless, whereas everything they need for a glorious life is already in them. But they are not engaging God, so they don't know how to access those things. And so every spiritual truth I teach personally, I begin from the corridor of prayer. And so prayer is a weapon for the last days. A believer who is not praying is a victim. Please make no mistakes about it. The reason you are not yet victimized is probably because your schedule has not appeared on demonic calendars. The Bible said the devil is prowling like a roaring lion, seeking whom he will devour. So he is checking. He's not omniscient and he's not omnipresent. So he's not everywhere at the same time. The reason he has not come to you is because you are not yet on his schedule. The Bible spoke of an evil day. There's an evil day for everybody. But like I taught you here, if you are effectively fortified, your evil day becomes your day of manifestation. Because everything we call a testimony was actually designed to kill us. The reason it became a testimony is because we counteracted the forces of darkness. And one of the things that gives you a strategic advantage to subdue and to overcome the powers of the enemy is to be fortified with prayer. And this kind of prayer is not just, Father, I need bread. No, this is actually a prayer life. It's not a prayer with prayer points. And it's not a prayer to meet the target of time. It's a prayer weaved into your essence. In Luke 18 verse 1, it said, men ought always to pray and not to faint. A man who understands that is in the last days eats prayer, talks prayer, chew prayer, drinks prayer. In fact, every second of the day he is vitally connected to God, because that is where his strength is. The light you see here does not exist actually. This light is a product of what the generator is doing. Now the power was in the generator, but the generator had to be started for the light to appear. And so everybody who carries God carries power on his inside, but it will take engagement or prayer for that power to be activated. That's why I said God is able to do exceeding abundantly above all you can ask or think, according to the power that is at work on your inside. And so when a man begins to build a life of prayer, what happens to him is that he migrates from dunamis into kratos. That man is a man who can generate power and use power any day, anytime. So the kind of prayer we are talking about for the last day is not to pray through. If my son is sick, I can pray through and address that sickness. If there is a challenge with my business, I can pray through and address that business. But if I am always waiting to correct things, I will spend my whole life correcting what the devil is destroying. And so the best way to live life, instead of correcting, is to live in a realm where they don't happen. And so a man who prays through corrects the problem, but a man who lives praying stops the problem from happening. So I don't waste my time correcting things. Things don't go wrong around my ecosystem. That's what prayer life does in the last day. And this is why prayer becomes a weapon. There is somebody who is about to be attacked by demons. He prays through and addresses it. There is somebody who is about to be attacked with sickness. He prays through and addresses it. But there is somebody else that demons tell themselves, don't go there. If you go there, you'll be in trouble, because of what he carries. Even when he's unconscious, power is moving. Power don't only move when you say in the name of Jesus. If you start living a life of prayer, you become the believer Jesus spoke about in John 7:38. He said, out of their bellies shall flow rivers of living waters. So power begins to issue out of you. And so a man who wants to have strategic advantage in the last day must give himself to prayer and pray without ceasing. This is how to survive in the last day. And this thing does not end here, because that power is also a synergistic power. What it means is when you start praying, you begin to connect with the heavenlies. And so there are many things you are not aware of, but heavenly entourage is working on your account. Did you not read about Daniel? After he fasted and prayed for 21 days, the Bible said Gabriel appeared to him and he said, I was made to fly swiftly, to come and give you skill and understanding. And so the prayer Daniel was praying, even though he was not aware, was mobilizing something in the heavenlies. And so Revelation chapter 5 verse 8, it said the prayers of the saints, they ascend to heaven as odors, and they are stored in golden vials. And so when a man is praying, he's creating a spiritual account in the heavens. That's why things cannot happen to that man. And so if you want to have an advantage in the last day, prayer is not something you pray because they call for prayer. Prayer is how you breathe. Prayer is how you live. And you will notice that the greatest attack on the believer in the last day is either in the area of purity or intimacy. Because the devil knows if you build intimacy through prayer, you become like Mount Zion that cannot be moved. And so when church encourages you to pray, it's an advantage. Don't wait to be motivated to pray. If you have the opportunity to pray, embrace it, catch it, and treasure it. Because there are many battles around your destiny that you are not aware of. The man that travails in prayer, what he's doing is to stir the wine, to stir the oil. The oil speaks of the overflowing anointing. And because that man has given himself to prayer, there is a royal decree in heaven: touch not that one. That's why I said, touch not my anointed. do my prophets no harm. One of the ways you keep yourself in the last day is through the force of prayer. Prayer is a weapon. It's not just to ask God for things. It's an insurance system in the spirit. When a man begins to pray, he becomes like a naked wire. Touch him at your own risk. Touch him at your peril. And even when he's not aware, there are forces working on his account that even himself doesn't know about. There are many persons you touch, things happen to you they don't know. You are the one who come back to confess. I heard a testimony somebody shared in Living Faith. The neighbor took his shoe, went and did charm, and brought the shoe. They say if the day she wears it, that's all. And this lady woke up the next day not aware of what happened, and she wore the shoe. There's a time, there's a level you build to. God will tell you don't touch the shoe, but there's another level you get to. God tells you wear it. By the time you wear it and nothing happened, that one now is the wonder realm of life. They'll now look at you. He's supposed to fall now. The hour that they calibrated from the demonic coven that you are supposed to faint, that's when you are now doing praise and worship. They are now checking from the window for you to shout and say, help me, help me. Then they now hear something that looks like a shout. They are about to open their door. Then you are singing, I have a very big God who is always by my side. A very big God by my side, by my side. When you are going to walk, you now say, hey brother, how are you doing? He will look at you like this. Sometimes when you greet people and they don't answer, there are things that happen that you are not aware of. Hello, how are you doing? You are coming back from work with bread. That's why he said, I and the children that the Lord has given to me, we are for signs and we are for wonders. He said, say unto Zacharias and them that sit with him, you are men, wonder that. That's the age that we have come into. But for us to activate those elements, prayer must come to the foundation. And so when a man is praying, he's fortifying himself. When a man is praying, he's mobilizing synergistic support from realms beyond the times. The second weapon a believer must take advantage of in the last day is the weapon of service. In Hebrews chapter 6 verse 10, it said, God is not unjust to forget your labor of love. There are many things the devil will throw at you in the last day that you don't even have faith to defend. There are many things that will come your way in the last day that you will not have sufficient intelligence to handle. When your deficiencies are manifested, then the justice system of the spirit, which is activated through your service, goes to work. The reason you find many persons who will never be victims or defeated is because God is not unjust to forget their labor of love. You think the soul winning campaign is a waste? You think standing there as an usher while others are sitting and taking note is a waste? No, you don't have spiritual knowledge to assume that. This is why in the kingdom, one of the blessings you have is the opportunity to serve. When a man becomes mature, he fights to serve in the kingdom because there are too many advantages allocated to service. Some of the big churches, when I have the opportunity to go minister for, I see strange things. The other day I went to minister somewhere in Lagos and somebody came to pick me. Sir, yes sir, please sir. But when I checked his mustache, you know, some of us, the way we were trained, even if the anointing on your head is pouring like a drum, when you see an elderly person, you don't allow him serve you. And I weighed his mustache, I knew this man would be in his 50s. So I said, sir, don't worry. Let's be companions. We are just moving together, but I will carry my iPad. When I finished and I was about to go, that was when I realized he was one of the very senior, maybe a regional manager, I've forgotten now, managers of Zenith Bank. You don't know how people become invincible. They come to church and beg to serve. There's a man of blessed memory, Obon King. Those days in House on the Rock, he had 2 vessels on the high sea, but he's the head of protocol. They have understanding because they know you cannot pray all your crises away in the last day. Everything is mobilized to fight you. And so anything that constitutes an advantage, you must lay hold on it. And service is one of the things that mobilizes the justice system of the spirit in your favor. That even when you are not speaking and legislating in prayer, the heaven is praying on your behalf. Because there are people the heaven pray on their behalf. These people are those who have labor of love on the altar. And so when they are in trouble, God moves. And when he moves, he is justified to move. Because his love necessitates that he will be unjust if he doesn't respond that way. He said God will not be unjust to forget your labor of love. Every act of service is an insurance system in the kingdom. And so some of the weapons we wield are the services we have on the altar. You'll find somebody working in an organization. They are attacking everybody, but he knows they can't attack him. It's not just because he prayed. It's because he knows where his sweat goes to. What I'm doing here, I'm doing largely because of the kingdom. And so if anything rises up against me here, the jealousy of God will rise to defend me. It's a system of insurance in the kingdom. And so in the last day, as much as is within your power, you must find a niche of service in the house of God. You can't afford to throw in and out. That's the least blessing you will receive. Number 3 is the force of sacrifice. Do you think when God has an agenda, somebody else deny himself food and go to labor, God is not hearing? You now wake up and say, there's no sacrifice, Jesus died for all of us. If Jesus died for all of us, who will go and do the evangelism? Who will set the stage? And you think God will look at that person who negates his comfort and goes out in the cold to set the stage and ignore him? He said those kinds of people, God sends them help from his sanctuary. We are not the same in the eyes of God. In salvation we are equal, but in kingdom we are different. Because in kingdom God has an agenda, and God can boycott 1 million people to attend to those who are servicing his agenda. Because if those people are not there, his agenda on the earth will be truncated. And so when you find a man of sacrifice, that's a man walking perpetually under the atmosphere of intervention. Make no mistakes about it. Sacrifice is a weapon, and that weapon is most important for the last day. Every time you go out of your way to do something in God's kingdom, it is recorded. In the day of trouble, even if you don't speak, that sacrifice will speak. In Genesis chapter 4 verse 4, the Bible spoke concerning Abel, that he gave a more excellent sacrifice than Cain. And when Cain slew his brother, Abel no longer had mouth to speak, but he said, the voice of thy brother is crying to me from the ground. So when a man enters the corridor of sacrifice, he becomes immortal. He becomes eternal. Even when he's not around, he still speaks. Weapons of the last days. Don't live this irresponsible Christian life where they do nothing. They are just strolling in and out of church. My God, in this world where you need God to be invincible, you can afford to be irresponsible. That's a deception from the pit of hell. Number 4 is the force of favor. I showed you how favor alters protocols last week. In Esther chapter 5 from verse 1 to 3, the Bible said after Esther did what she did, she went in to the king, which was against the law. That means favor breaks protocols. If you want protocols to be suspended on your account, what you need is favor. He said it was against the law, notwithstanding, Esther went in. And he said when the king saw her, instead of giving instruction for her to be killed, he stretched his rod and beckoned on her to come. And in verse 3, we saw the most unreasonable thing for any king to do. He said, what do you want? Ask me whatever you want. And he said, even if it is up to half of my kingdom, I will give you. Why did he do that? In verse 2, he said, Esther obtained favor with God. And so favor is a weapon in the last day. Aside the fact that favor commands the allegiance of men, favor also is a protocol breaker. In Exodus chapter 12 verse 36, when Israel was to leave Egypt, it was one thing God gave them. It's called favor. He said God gave favor to the Israelites and they spoiled the Egyptians. That's how they carried the wealth of Egypt out of Egypt. Because they went with something called favor. In the last day, you cannot do without favor. And so everything that provokes favor, you must engage it. And I've shown you some. I told you last week that fasting engenders favor. Esther 4:16, she fasted for 3 days and 3 nights. And Israel fasted on her account. Esther 5 verse 2, she obtained favor with the king. I have also shown you that calling upon the name of the Lord engenders favor. I have heard the cry of my people from the earth, therefore am I come. And when he came, what he gave them was favor. I've shown you honoring men provokes favor. Because men carry many things. Favor is one of it. And he said, when you receive a righteous man, in the name of a righteous man, he didn't say the righteous man will bless you. He said you will receive his reward. His reward is what makes him who he is. And if favor is there, that favor will be granted you. So honor is also a gateway to favor. This generation is a generation that trivializes spiritual things that are an advantage. But it will not be your portion. As you walk out of this hall tonight, favor will rub off on you. I'm now hearing a sound. That means my sermon should stop now. You know, when the spirit begins to move, you have to align. You have to align. I wanted to mention the fifth one. The force of men. Men. If God will bless you, he will bless you with honorable men. What one man can do for you, one man sent to you by God, you will need, oh dear Lord. In 2 Samuel chapter 21 verse 17, David the anointed went to battle, and the Bible said one of the nephews of Goliath, the giant of Gath that David slew, came after him. So after David killed Goliath, the guy went for revenge mission and took many years to practice. And when the guy showed up, his spear was worth 300 shekels of silver. When he came against David, he would have killed David by one strike. And the Bible said, Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, he rose up and slew the giant. That means even the anointed can be killed if there are no men. So one of the ways the anointing becomes an insurance is to draw men that will create a support structure. And he said when they slew the giant, the men now told David, you will no more go to battle, lest the light of God in Israel be put out. That means David was still the light of God, but the light of God can be slaughtered. And so instead of you going out, we will now go out on your account. Do you know what it means to go out? If you go out, you can be killed. But when you have honorable men, they are willing to die for you. The Bible said David desired to drink water from the well that was in the sepulchre of Rachel, where the garrison of the Philistines was. And they said 3 men stood up and put their lives to jeopardy just to quench David's thirst. They didn't get water from another place. Is this the water you say you want to drink? If it cost us our blood, we'll bring it to you. And they stood up and they broke. You know what a garrison is? There are over 12 legions in a garrison. And 3 men rose up. They know it will take bureaucracy to apply for a battalion. And so let's cut off the bottleneck of bureaucracy. Come, let's go. It's an honor to die for this man. And they broke in. 1 was drawing water, 2 were fighting. Only God knows how many those 2 fought. And while they were fighting, the Bible said they brought the water. So 1 was bringing the water, 1 was fighting here, another was fighting here. And when they brought the water to David, David said, no, this is not water. He said, this is their blood, for they have put their life to jeopardy. And so when God blesses you with men, they give you their blood as an offering. In 1 Chronicles 12:22, he said, daily men joined themselves to David until his host became like the host of God. A man can be compared to God because of the kind of men that followed him. And you need to read the credentials of this man. The Bible spoke of Adoni the Takumite. He said he was the first among the first 3 in rank. He took a spear, one spear, and brought down a whole legion of an army. And he said, Eleazar, the son of Dodo. There was a time where he took a spear and he slew 800 men until his hands became cleaved to the spear. The man fought until he could no longer open his mouth, but loyalty kept him fighting, because what he was fighting with was no longer strength, it was the power of loyalty. So long as this will bring glory to David, I will keep fighting. I will keep fighting. And he said, Shammah, the son of Dodo. He said there was a time the army of Israel fled, 1 man stood, and said everybody can run and we stand. See, what you need is not many men, it's loyal men. Loyal men. Everybody ran away. The man stood his ground. I'm going nowhere. And he fought from morning to evening. And he said that day the Lord wrought a great harvest. The The glory of God is revealed when loyal men begin to appear. And so in the last day, if God gives you a program, if God gives you a business, if God gives you an agenda, in addition to that business, God will have to give you loyal men. I pray for somebody here tonight, the grace to walk in the company of loyal men. Receive it now. Hey.
Thank you for watching. Please kindly like, comment, subscribe, and turn on your notification bell so you always get notified whenever we post a new video. And don't forget to share. Thank you.